Who basically caused all wars? To answer this question, I've gathered the oldest self I could find, and the shot was looking a bit plain, so I found this picture of Pac-Man that I painted when I was like 6 or something, before I even knew what Pac-Man was. Who caused all the major conflicts humanity has seen? The president? Aliens, perhaps? Celebrities? Those people do a lot of things. They might have a hand in this. Okay, honestly, wars can be caused by practically anything. But the problem is that not all of those topics would make a good YouTube video, which is why I chose this one, because I don't think you guys want to watch me talk about actual politics for 20 minutes. Can all wars be brought back to a minuscule point in time? No. This is supposed to be entertaining, not scientifically, like, historically accurate. When most people talk about who started World War I, they talk about Archduke Ferdinand, and some people are feeling spicy when they talk about what caused World War I. Usually, they'd mention Gavrilo something last name. I don't care enough to research that. But they don't answer a lot of whys. Why did all of this happen? Why did it happen the way it did? And why did it happen when it did? Well, folks, I found the answer to all of those whys. Or at least 25% of those whys. Not everything in this video is going to be historically accurate, and that's partially because we're talking about history here, and we're talking about a kid researching history here. So like half the stuff here might not even be true, but it's entertaining. You may notice that as the video starts, things are going to start off pretty vague, and then they're going to go more and more complex. That's partially because at the beginning of the video, we're dealing with the year 49 AD. Speaking of 49 AD, this is the beginning of the video. Check the timestamp, which means we're going to talk about Jong, who inconsequently started probably every major conflict ever. So basically, to put it simply, Jong was angry at a bunch of Chinese emperors, so he convinced a commander to kill them, and then he got the kingdom in return. Nobody knows why, or at least I don't know why, but I'm everybody. I'm the correct opinion, not the YouTuber, like the thing. So the next big question is probably what happened after that, and I need to look at my script because I don't know. Jong must have not been very active on social media because I practically couldn't find anything of his existence online. So take everything I just said with a grain of salt. So next he founded Xi'an State, which was a country, but it's called a state because it's like a state of being. After a while, it turns out all of the Khans died, which left the country impoverished and without power, which made it split into a bunch of mini separate nations, one of which would become the Rulon Congregate, which would be the first people to actively use the term Khan. In the Rulon Congregate, there were a lot of Turkish protests from what would later become the Ottoman Empire, so the Gok Turks, which I like to pronounce the Gok Turks, because there's a lot of accents, and me as a native English speaker cannot decipher any one of them from each other, decided to help them, and in return they wanted a princess. The only problem was that the Rulon Congregate didn't want to give them a princess, so the logical solution and next step is obviously to fight a war that would split up the entire country for decades to come. The Gokturks actually ended up winning the war, which would subsequently spread Turkish population and culture all over Eurasia. Big word alert. That means Europe and Asia. Slowly, Christians, mostly Serbians, were protesting laws in the Ottoman Empire because they didn't like the laws. That's why they protested them. That's why most people were protesting. The Bosnians took inspiration from it and they started their own revolution. The only problem is that the Serbians were in alliance with the Ottoman Empire, so nothing sinister would likely happen if the Serbians protested. But when the Bosnians did, they actually had an opportunity to take over. War arose over this political mismanagement, and it led Bosnia to be in the hands of Austria and Hungary. Duke Ferdinand was one of the people closely related to the Austria-Hungary, which was Bosnia at the time.
And I mentioned this at the beginning. You have some clear attention. Then we back.
When a Serbian assassin, who again, Serbians were associated with the Ottoman Empire, decided to shoot him and his wife, which caused political distress. But I like to believe that nobody actually cared about Bosnia. It's a tiny country, about this big, somewhere in Europe. I'm pretty sure the alliances just got tangled up and they were forced to literally have the biggest war at the time. After that, Germany put all of their money into World War I, which means literally nothing was left. This economic crisis made a lot of fear-mongering techniques more effective, which is why they settled for a guy in a rectangle mustache who failed art class as the leader. Adolf Hitler would also use anti-Semitism as a technique, much like the ones politicians still use today, which is inventing an imaginary threat, which redirects the anger people of your population have towards something else, when in reality you're causing the problem. So what ended up happening was World War II was a thing. And it was a thing, and it happened. Conspiracy theorists, pay attention. And then after that, when Adolf Hitler killed himself, the war halted to a close, and Japan, which was Germany's ally, which, by the way, Japan, I expected better from you, collapsed. And since Korea was under Japanese occupation, when Japan fell, it opened up a niche for North Korea to fill, which would therefore lead to the Korean Wars, which we'll get back to in a second. It turns out during World War II, when the Americans and the Soviets were fighting a common goal, the Soviet spies committed espionage. Again, I don't know if this happened 100%, which quickly spread anti-communist propaganda all over America. I'm not saying communism is good, but I'm not saying propaganda is good either. None of it's good. That's history. Which, for some reason, provoked America to enter a lot of wars and get involved in wars, which themselves involved the Soviet Union or the countries who were communist. Such include the Vietnam War, the Korean War, the Latvian Civil War, the Cuba's Revolutionary Period, and basically the rest of the Cold War. If we go down the chart a bit, we're gonna see that World War I, World War II, and the creation of Austria-Hungary all connects to a little thing that would later become the Yugoslav Wars. After a while, Bosnia, along with 5 other nations, were united as one. They ended up disagreeing on a lot of political issues. I don't have any qualifications to talk about this, so here's a vague bladder of what happened. It caused a mass amount of genocides where 130 to 140,000 people died. And there were a lot of causing factors. The Yugoslav wars weren't one war as much as they were a lot of different separate wars with related cause. And terrorism, lots and lots of terrorism. In addition, as China transitioned into communism like half the countries at the time, they became the People's Republic of China. And America halted relations with the country up until basically now. Keep in mind, the Yugoslav wars ended in 2000, so we got from 4980 to 2080. And it's all because of one dude called Jong. G-Tong. I already forgot his name. In total, only about 106 million people died, which is a tragedy. The biggest out of practically everything. Only seen in legends. But compared to the total human population now, I'd say we should be rather grateful that more people didn't die throughout this array of wars. I know I didn't include the current Middle East crisis, as I couldn't find a correlation between the motives of the communists or the Nazi regime with America and its hunt for petrol in the Middle East. I guess what I'm trying to say in general is that wars are always bound to happen. Even if Jong didn't exist, there would be wars, but the causation would be different, and the factors of the wars would also be different. The thing is, humans just love to fight in giant masses, and we couldn't change that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm not trying to say that these wars wouldn't have happened if any of these things were different. What I am trying to say is that everything you do can make a difference. If some Chinese man called Jong in the year 49 caused all major conflicts with a few exceptions, of course, but come on, keep it up for the show, then why can't you make a difference? You can. You have all your life ahead of you, unless you're like 80. But still, you have some time left, I'm guessing, unless you're dead while you're watching this, which I highly don't believe. So just try to make a difference, because one day you could change something. You could foresee a tragedy that can happen in the future, and you can end it to a halt. Every itty bitty inch of effort you put into your life is gonna make a difference. So I'm guessing one of those billions of differences is gonna be a good one. This has been Dr. Jacob, minus the Jacob. Subscribe for date now. Sometimes leak content. Yeah, that's doable. Subscribe for sometimes leak content. Comes out once in a sometime.